Welcome to another Generations mini lesson. This time we are going to cover the differences between a line and an area. Many people ask, why can't I put a run stitch on a satin stitch? And that is the difference between the two, is that an area will encompass area object stitch properties, whereas a line will encompass the line object stitch properties. An area will not be able to produce a line stitch, and a line will not be able to produce an area stitch. So let's see an example of this. We are going to left click on the insert image icon, and when I left click on that, I'm going to go through my images and just choose this sun here. We'll press OK, and when we press OK, we'll just let everything be as is and then press OK again. Once we get that, our image will import, it will be traced, and we can resize the image. We'll leave the size of the image as is and then just press OK. Now what Generations has done, it has traced the areas, including the background area, although the program will not put stitches in that white background area. But let's delete that white background area anyway. So I right click on that white background, it shades in gray, and that's because I'm in my outline view. I will then hold Control and then Delete on my keyboard, and that will delete the outline of the background. Now you still see the background in the design because the original artwork is turned on, or that template is turned on. To turn the template off, we left click on the Hide View Image icon. And when I left click on that, you can see that now my template is turned off. So what we see here is what Generations has retraced for us. We are going to left click on the generate icon and generate stitches into the areas. Once we generate stitches, we'll be able to see what kind of areas have shown up and what stitch types are in those areas. I'm going to go ahead and click on the 3D icon at the top. Right now I'm in my stitch view as well as my 3D view. And we can see that it has generated stitching, and it has put satin stitching on those black outlines, and the fill stitching is on the interior areas. First thing I'm going to do is just right click inside the center of the sun, and we're going to change the color just so it's a little bit different than the default, because it was very close in color, and we're just changing the color so we can see on screen. I'll right click off to the side to deselect. Now many questions I do get is, how can I change the satin stitch outline to a running stitch? When I right click on the area of the satin stitch outline that I want to change to a running stitch and then go to my properties settings, you can see here that I do not have any options to change it to a line stitch. And the reason is because areas, this is an area, and I can see that it is an area because right now I am in my area object stitch properties. An area will only allow me to put in satin or fill stitch types. So we'll press OK. So right now I cannot access any running stitch types. In order to access running stitch types, I need a line. With this area selected, or any other area selected, we can change areas into lines. So I have the black outline of the sun selected, and I will then go to my view outline. I'll left click on view outline. In view outline, I can see that that ring is selected because it's shaded in gray, and I will left click on the zoom selected object icon so that I'm zoomed in on this. To change this to a line, or to convert from a line to an area, while in the outline view, I need to go to the outline tools and select create line from area. When I left click on that, it inputs the best fit line into that area. So with this one, it will put it right in the center of that area. Let me change the color so we can really see it on screen. We'll change it to red, and I'll press OK. And once I do that, it generates that line, and you can now see that I have a line stitch on top of my area. So I have both. I'll left click on the frame that represents the line. That's frame number 5, and it acts as a right click on screen. I will then go to my stitch properties. I'll left click on that, and now at the top you see it says Line Object Stitch Properties. You can see that I have run, double run, triple run, basting stitch, satin border, motif border, run and cross, blanket stitch, and buttonhole. I can only access those stitch types with lines, and I can only access the area stitch types with area, such as satin, complex fill, radial, motif fill, things like that. So we'll just press OK. Now what we need to do is we need to get rid of the area behind it. So I'll left click inside frame number 4, which represents that ring area, and I will hold Control and then delete on my keyboard, and that will completely delete that area. Now one thing I do see here is that I've got some spacing between my two objects and my line. What happened was that area that was between the center of the sun and the flames of the sun was so wide, and therefore it did not have orange extending out from there or yellow extending beyond there. So now we're going to the outline view. So I'll left click on outline view, and we can see here's the line and here's the area, and there's a little bit, we'll zoom in, of discrepancy between the two. So I would have spacing or fabric showing up in between, and we also have to account for that, pushing and pulling of fabric. So we need to make sure that those two will butt up next to each other. Let's zoom on this selected object, and with the selected object I am selected on it with a right click, and now we'll go to the edit mode. Now one thing we could do is actually move each individual node and try and match it up, but that does take a little bit of time. So I can see one way to move it or to have it match up is just to size the inside of that sun. We're going to view the whole design, so I'll zoom the whole design, and if I left click, I'll have to get out of the edit mode. If I left click on it and I try to size just the inside, it will size the whole thing because it's all grouped together. So we will left click on the group ungroup icon. Now I need to make sure that I am left clicked on my whole area, and then I will left click on the group ungroup icon. Once I do that, it should ungroup everything from each other. So when I left click on the center of the sun, it's its own object property in that I can change the size, I can change the layout of that object itself. I can move it away if I wanted to. But we're just going to undo that, move it back into the center. We'll zoom in just on that selected object, and I can size that object a little bit larger to match up with that line. If I just choose one of the four corners and I left click, hold, and drag, you can see, whoops, we'll undo that. I had clicked my mouse a couple too many times. Once I left click, hold, and drag, as I drag from one corner to another, it's going to drag from that opposite corner. So I'm dragging to the upper right hand side, and it's dragging from that lower left hand corner. And you can see that right here. But I can also size it from the center if I hold the shift key on my keyboard, and I can size it from the center and it will size it from center out. So I'm going to line it up with that line. Once I line it up with that line, I let go of my left click, and now I can generate my stitches, and it should line up directly with that outline. The other object that we have that does not line up is the yellow stitching. We were just playing with the orange stitching. So we're going to right click on this yellow area, and we could change the size of this yellow area and make it smaller to line up with that. But what I'm going to do here is something a little bit different. I don't want to change my size, but I do want to go to the outline view. I'll left click on the outline view, and we're going to go to edit outline mode. So I left click on the edit mode icon. Now again, we can move those individual nodes, add nodes, or however we'd like. But this, I'm going to choose a tool that's a little bit easier to do or to work with. So I'll choose the zoom out, and I'll zoom out one time so I can see what I'm working on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring one point in with a left click, hold and drag, and actually these are new points that I'm creating, and another point in, left click, hold and drag, and I'm using these 2 points right across from each other because I'm going to use these 2 points as reference points for applying and adjusting arc. With moving those 2 points, while I'm still selected on the area with a right click, I'll go to Outline and then Adjust with an Arc. I'll left click on Adjust with an Arc. I'll go to the one side of the point that I made, left click once. To the other side, left click once. So with those 2 points, I have defined my 2 points on the outline of the area, or I'm sorry, of the segment I want to adjust. Now the segment turns blue. I'll left click on that segment once, and then I can move that segment up or down. I usually like to move towards the center of that segment and move it, because if I get too close to the nodes, it can move pretty erratically. So I like to do from the center and then left click to set. I'm still in the tool, so let's do the bottom half. I will left click once here, left click once here. So I define the 2 endpoints of the segment, left click on the segment, and then left click to set. So I've moved the area of the yellow inwards a little bit. I'll press Escape to get out of the tool, right click off to the side, and generate my stitches. So now we have those areas butting up to each other, as well as that running stitch going through. I'm going to zoom on this whole design. Now the other part that we have is the flames on the outline. Now with these flames, I can also do the same thing that I did on the interior of the circle and create a line from the area, but this one I'm going to show you something a little bit different. This one, because we have many areas that are, we have many curves within the area, we would have to move each individual node, and that could be a tedious process. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create an outline. With this area right now, it is an area, so we can only put area stitch types in there. I'm going to control and delete this area, so it is completely deleted, and now all I'm left with is the flames. With that selected, you can see my blue and white flashing lines going around it. I do have the inside of the area, which is that circle, as well as the outside. If you're not sure about why that is the inside, I'm going to get out of the 3D view and turn off that interior circle. Now you can see that I've got the interior of that. So with this selected, I will right click inside the area, then go to Create Outline from Area Edges, and I will choose a double run. I want it on the outside border only. I do not want it on the inside because we already have one on the inside. The offset at 0 will put it directly on that blue and white flashing line. I'll press OK. It's going to default to the same color I'm working on, which would default to yellow, but instead I want to change it to red, and I want to change it to the red that I had before that I chose. So in my color bar, if I place my cursor over the red and right click on that, that will change it to that same color red, so I don't have to find that red again. I'll generate my stitches, right click off to the side, and now you can see that outline fits directly on that sun outline. Let's turn that interior of the sun back visible. I'll left click on that, and we'll look at the 3D view, and now we can see we've got running stitch outlines on our design instead of satin stitch outlines. Let's change the red. We'll left click on the red color chip. It selects all the red in the design that's in that spot, and then I will change it to black, press OK. It'll regenerate. I can right click off to the side, and now I've got those black outlines in just running stitches. And we have them in double run, so we can change it to any running stitch type. After I've done that, I probably will want to group these back together, so we'll go to Edit. I'll left click on Edit, Select, and then Select All, and then we will go down to our Group, Ungroup icon at the bottom, left click on that, and it'll group those areas back together so that in case I move the design, it will move everything together rather than have them ungrouped. You can certainly leave them ungrouped, but just be aware that they are ungrouped. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and look for more lessons coming soon. Thanks a lot.